Do you read me over?
Be advised, you are coming in weak and unreadable.
Say again, Com Tower. This is Pacho. Do you read me over?
Pacho, this is Com Tower. I read you Lima Charlie.
Com Tower, Com Tower. Request permission to launch and commence the field op. Over.
Stand by. Pacho, permission granted. I say again, permission granted.
Roger that. Launching podcast in 3, 2. You are now entering the field op with your host, Pacho Correa, Chief Warrant Officer 3, United States Marine Corps retired. Get some. Hurrah! Get some. All right, what's going on, everybody? Another weekend is almost here. Friday night's Eve, baby Friday, but goddamn, it's almost the weekend. And we got a really good show for you today. We also got have an amazing guest that we'll get right to it here in just a second. But hey, let me ask you this: did you know that if you gave up a cup of Starbucks or a couple of them a month or every couple of times a week, because I'm a Starbucks lover myself, and I'm not giving. I wish I could get paid just by giving them free advertise, but on average, you're spending about $5 to $7 on a cup of coffee, which again, it's pretty good. And imagine how many times you do that a week. If you did the math and it equivalents to maybe 30, 40, even $50, did you know with that money you can actually start investing as well as put something to protect your family in the event, God forbid, something happens? No, I'm not talking about SGLI or VGLI for that matter. I'm just saying putting strategies together so that your family and your loved ones don't have to guess, God forbid, somewhere to happen. And then, once you're gone, that money from the VA or your retirement keeps coming on top of the other things, because look, dying is a business, and it's not if we're going to die, it's when we're going to die. And at least you want to be protected. So that's where I come in, and that's what I help families put strategies together so that they're better off later, and again, or if you want to send your college to school, among other things. I mean, there's so many things that we can do to help your family. So it's always just a conversation. If you're open, wanted to find out more, and I can share some tangible information to take it with you, then go to my link tree. It's right there on the show description. Let's set up a free conversation. And at the end of the day, hey, look, if it doesn't make sense or it's not the priority right now, I get it. Maybe, but at least you have the plan so that when you're ready to implement it, you already have the plan in your cargo pocket. The other thing that I do is I help veterans put strategies together and also apply for the VA claims and benefits. That's just something that I do, helping my brothers and sisters. It doesn't cost you anything. I walk you through the process. I show you how to do it so that way you also take handle on it and basically start learning your system, because at the end of the day, look, it's the only thing that we got. The system is not perfect. However, you need to, the enemy of my enemy is a friend of mine, so to speak. So learn the system. It's not that hard. It's gotten better. So if you want to find out more, again, shoot me a DM. Link Tuesday and Thursdays is when I tend to help veterans on those things. So, go on there. We can have a conversation. All right. So, and look, this show, we build community, we share information. And if you want to be a guest on the show, by all means, hey, let me be your platform. You can schedule yourself. We can have a conversation, put yourself out there. And if you want to be a podcaster, we can also get you linked in or plugged in with Brian Colburn from the folks at Sitch Radio, because he's an amazing individual, and he can definitely get your word out, among many other things. So if you want more information on that, let me know. Because look, at the end of the day, we're building a community. This show is all about the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, and all the other great things that the freedoms that the Constitution brings us. So if you although we may agree or disagree, and that's okay. If you like this show, like, subscribe, and follow. You can also follow me on all my other social media venues. And if not, you can swipe left, and that's okay. Perhaps check out my next guest show, or one right here at sitchradio.com. So I think that's all the pleasantries out of the way. Today on the field op, we're going to talk to veteran Cliff Sosamon. I met this individual at MCC, Military Content Creator 2026, and he joins today we're going to talk about some many veterans, leaders, and even us because a lot of us are high performers when we get out of the service, and we struggle with that after major, and we do that big, huge, major life transition. And how do we keep moving forward in the right direction? So Cliff will also talk to us about his podcast, and he's a founder and the creator of the Action Under Fire, which teaches people how to basically how to be disciplined. Don't be a nasty civilian. You know what I'm saying? And because hey, you're gonna go through uncertainty, fear, anxiety, stress, all the other things. But nonetheless, this conversation about leadership and identity, and maybe a little bit of execution, and learning how to move forward when life gets heavy, right? So with that being said, everybody, hey, let's bring Cliff. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Hey, brother, I'm good. How you doing today?
I'm doing outstanding, ding, ding, as they used to say back at the rifle page.
Right, absolutely.
Hey, Cliff, so before we get into the whole message and we're going to talk about your back, tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously, what led you to, obviously find the Tailgate Chat, speaker, and becoming a mentor, so on and so on. But give us a little story behind now how you got here, brother.
Right on. Well, it depends on how far you want to go back. I mean, I grew up in a town of it was 850 people when I left. I think it's 700 people now in central Illinois. And the Marine Corps was something. I mean, my dad served in Vietnam, and it was always, I want to serve. I want to do what my dad did. But it was also, I mean, I graduated like 42 out of 48 kids, right? I mean,
Wow.
you could say I was in the top 50. Of course, we only had 49. So, but it was just, school was not my thing. No way I was going to college, and the Marine Corps was my ticket out of town. So much so, I just signed up for 6 years from the start. And I was like, love it or hate it, here I go. I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps. I was stationed at Camp Lejeune for the first 2+ years. Got to spend some time on ships, floated around the Caribbean on a cruise for about 6 months. I spent 12 days in Haiti, which was not fun. And then we got back. I ended up going to where I really wanted to go when I walked into the recruiter's office was Marine Security Guard Battalion. So
Okay.
I spent the second half of my career as an embassy guard, and that life was amazing. It was beautiful. It was great. I mean, we're living in multi-million-dollar houses and cooks, maids, laundry lady, driver. I mean, we didn't have to worry about anything. We just, it's a very stressful job. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the embassy and everything and everybody in it they look to you. So,
Right.
But luckily for me, my first post was Bangkok, Thailand, and then my second post was Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So not really high stress situations. I mean, there are guys in, Mogadishu and, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, which, I mean, I was still in and at the battalion headquarters when the two embassies were blown up over in Africa. And I had served with guys at both posts. I served with them in in Bangkok. And so very familiar with the dangers of that job, but also the wonder and beauty that it is to be attached to the Department of State. No MREs, no field ops, none of that. Dress blues every day kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I spent 6 years in. I got out. I got a job lined up doing security for Ross Perot. That's what brought us to Dallas. So that's what brought us here. And long story short, still live in Dallas, still love it. Wouldn't go anywhere else. It's just a great place.
No, and I think Dallas. One of our daughters lives in Dallas. As a matter of fact, she's been a guest on the show a couple of times.
Nice.
But I mean, I'm a huge Texas fan myself, even though we're right here in South Florida. But I think Texas, where it's at. So when you were in embassy duty, because I was kind of looking at doing that as a B billet and everything else, but I guess by the time I got around to that, it was like I was at a different point in my career. It's like, okay, well, it's one, will the monitor let me go? And I know they'll let me go for recruiting duty for sure, because obviously nobody would dodge that bullet. But this billet like this, I don't know if he'll allow it. Motor T was kind of like sometimes the monitor wouldn't keep you. They're like, hey, we need you for the benefit of the Corps, which is bullshit.
Right.
I ended up going on recruiting duty, and that was a different world. But man, your first post was Bangkok. I mean,
Yes.
Everybody gets a hardship initially. I mean, that's what everybody says.
That's what they say. So I guess that was mine. I mean, we did live, within. I got extra pay because we lived so close to the equator. It was like within like 15 degrees of the equator, you get an extra bump in pay. At least you did back then. So, and I'll tell you, it was hot when I got there. It was in August. I left DC on an August day, and I landed like the day before in Bangkok, Thailand. It literally took 24 hours to get there. I landed at midnight, and they didn't have the typical catwalk. It was the stairs. And when I stepped off of the plane, I was like, ugh! And I thought that the jets were still on, and the jet was over there facing that way. And I was like, it's just that hot at midnight. Just for the next 15 months, all I did was sweat.
Wow.
It was amazing how hot and humid Southeast Asia is.
Yeah.
You hear people talk about it, right? You just don't know it till you're there and you experience it. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's why they give you. I mean, in recruiting, they call it a large uniform issue, because you're going through them like, at a cyclic rate. Because obviously, in your situation, you're sweating like a whore in church. So,
yes,
yes,
that's
that's crazy. So, so let's talk a little bit about like military structure versus civilian freedom, and why a lot of us struggle after service. So, and obviously we lose that identity because we always have a mission, whether it's, hey, guard my post, or hey, take the objective, whatever it may be. But what the transition looked like for you on the on your side of the fence? Right.
And I've talked about this a little bit on my podcast and some of the writings that I've done on Substack. I've talked about this very thing. And let me put it to you this way. There are some guys and gals, when they get out, it's like, oh shit, I'm out.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I should load my car and go home. They don't really prepare or think about it.
Yeah.
Especially like I got one buddy who he was in security forces. He was guarding the subs down in Kings Bay, and on guard duty during the commanding officer was walking by, and he had a seizure. And in 30 days, he was out. I mean, it was just like, oh, you can't have seizures while you're guarding nuclear submarines. So he just got instant out. And he said, within 30 days, I was sitting on my couch back in Boston, or as he says, I was back in Boston, parking the car in the yard.
Yeah.
It was like no time to plan, right? No time to do anything. It was just out. I, on the other hand, happened to be working in the company. I blew out my knee in Rio. So I spent my last 10 months in the Corps back in Quantico, and because I'd had my knee rebuilt. And I happened to be, they put me in the company office. They made me the BEQ manager, right? You got to do something. You got to give the sergeant something to do, right? So what I did is I took that time and did a complete restoration of a historic building, which was the one we were in, which I don't think they were really planning on me doing, but I did it anyway. So I happened to be in the company office when a fax, that tells you how long ago this was, a fax came in on the machine, and I just happened to grab it, and it was from this company called Perot Systems, which was Ross Perot's company. And it was sent by a guy who used to be an MSG, who was working as the head of their recruiting. He was actually a MSG in 1985 in Moscow, Russia, when the whole Lone Tree incident happened.
Oh, wow.
So he was like right there when all of that went down.
Right.
So Mr. Pro had been walking through their offices, and they were using like Smith security, right? So it's like retired guys in a wannabe police uniform. And of course, as Mr. Pro would do, he'd walk by and go, "What are those guys doing? We need somebody that looks, can we get some Marines or something?" And so Carlos was like, I can get these kind of guys. He goes, "That's what I want." So I was one of the first 5 that they hired that were MSGs, and they paid for our flight and hotel down to interview. They paid for us to move down there. They paid for us to go to school. So, and this was like five months before I got out. So before I hit terminal, I had an apartment rented. I had a job lined up. I had everything, right? So my transition wasn't hard.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great.
It was just, we drove to Dallas and drove right to the apartment and moved in. And that part was easy. I know that's not the norm for everybody,
right,
but that part was easy. What was the challenge was over the next 7 years, I worked for 9 different companies in 9 different industries. Because what I found, and I didn't know it at the time, it wasn't until, like I talked about in my 6th podcast, my last one I just posted a couple of weeks ago, it was about reflection. And one of the things we need to do as individuals as we progress through life and we get more of this kind of color in our beard and we get more rotations around the sun is we need to kind of stop every once in a while and kind of do an AAR, right? And for those who don't know, an after action review, something we always did after a mission, after any kind of planned thing. What went right? What went wrong? What could be better? What can we replicate? Let's do that. And so every once in a while in my life, I do those. And I was looking back and I was like, why did I work? Because at the time I was just in it and I'm like, this job sucks. I got to find something different. Oh, this job looks great. You know, it's always, grass is always greener on the other side, right?
Oh yeah. Trust me.
Until you get there and you're like, oh shit, that was better over there. Yeah. But what I found was missing was the structure of being in the military, the community, the camaraderie, the brotherhood that you have in the military. Guess what you don't find in corporate America? Any of that, like at all. You know, it's, I go to work at 9, I'm done at 5. You know, I'm Fred Flintstone. I pull the tail on the bird.
I used to say the same thing. Yabba dabba do. And I slide down that ass and I'm out.
Yeah, out. So for me, I didn't realize it at the time. I was constantly jumping industries, companies, careers. It was because that's what was missing. And I, you know, the structure of, yes, people ask me all the time, do I miss being in the Marine Corps? And I'll say, I miss it every day, but I don't miss a day of it. Right? Like, I miss being you know, with brothers and sisters. I miss the stuff we used to do in the barracks. I miss the stuff we used to do, the craziness we used to do when we were on ship, or, you know, when we were, you know, when I lived in Bangkok, Thailand, I was one of 9 Marines in the country. When I was in Rio, there was like in Rio de Janeiro, there was 6 of us, I think.
Right.
So we were always together. You never left the house alone. It was at least one, if not everybody together going out. You know, you were always together, hanging out, doing stuff around the house. We'd eat together. We'd go to work together, yada, 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 right? And you get out and you're like, hey, I pull up to work and hi, Frank. Hey, Joe, you know, and you go in and you sit down and you do your thing and you're like, bye, Frank. Bye, Joe. And it's off for the day. You can have camaraderie, but it's different. It's different in the corporate world, right? It's not the same thing. And so for me, I realized later I was constantly striving to try to find that. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that's what it was. You know, when I found that is when I moved to Frisco, Texas, and my wife's like, we need to, let's go to this HOA meeting. They hold them once a year. And so we went, and I met this old guy, and I said, hey, I'm gonna try to be on the board. And my wife's like, yeah, let's do that. So he was like, introduce yourself. And I said, my name's Cliff, and I'm a Marine, and da-da-da. And of course, the chairman of the HOA happened to be a retired Navy Master Chief and was like in everything veteran related in Frisco. So afterwards, he comes up, he goes, are you a member of the VFW? And I'm like, man, and this was in like 2008. I go, I've been a member since 1994. My dad was the commander of our local VFW in my small little town. And the minute I got my Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, he bought me a lifetime membership. So I'm like, I even pulled it out. I said, look, man, here's my lifetime membership card. I have never once walked into a VFW hall or been to a meeting. He goes, well, you should come. And like most young guys, I'm like, do I really want to go to a VFW?
Yeah, they're struggling for memberships.
So, and the thing was, I was already a lifetime member, so he wasn't going to sell me on anything. So I went, and next thing I know, I'm the post adjutant. And then the next thing I know, I'm the junior vice commander. And the next thing I know, I'm the senior vice commander. But what I discovered was that's what was missing, was the community and the camaraderie. So now this is 10 years after being out. And I realized being around other veterans and, we can say stuff and we just get it. Whereas some of my non-military related friends are like, well, that sounds harsh, or that's cruel. That's life, right? I mean, is my sense of humor twisted and I laugh at stuff that most people would cry at? Probably. But when you see some of the stuff that we've seen or have to be prepared mentally for some of the things that we have to do in the military, you're not the same after that. And you can't, you just have a different way of looking at things, right? Like for me, some people will be like, well, you shouldn't ride a motorcycle, because you could get killed. Okay, well, I can die in bed. When it's my time, it's my time. So whether I'm flying in an airplane at 30,000 feet, stepping out of the shower, or driving a motorcycle, when it's my time, it's my time. People drowned in cup of tea all the time. So it's the way it is. But shit happens. So all of that to say that it was the veteran community that I was missing. So that led to me and another group of veterans starting a nonprofit called the North Texas Military Association. And then that led to many years of doing VFW, NTXMA, and then becoming the executive director of Honor, Courage, Commitment, and running that entrepreneurship program and leading that organization for like 4 or 5 years. And that's really how I got here. And I'll be honest with you, Francisco, when HCC, and I talk about this in depth in one of the episodes on the podcast, when HCC ended up closing, I didn't realize that I had really done it. And it was upon reflection that I realized that, I always felt like I had a sense of purpose. And my sense of purpose at the time was helping veterans through their transition, whether it was find a job. We created a program to help them build their resumes and partnered them with very high-end recruiting firm called Korn Ferry that came in and taught them how to do resumes and stuff like that, and how to and connected with them. We created mentor programs. We had an entrepreneurship program. And the whole purpose behind all that was to help veterans find their sense of purpose. Because I realized at this point in my life, like 2012, 13, 14, after doing this veteran stuff, I realized the light bulb went off, right? And I was like, oh, that's what was missing for me for those 7 years was I wasn't working toward a sense of purpose. I hadn't identified my sense of purpose. So I had to find it. Well, mine was serving other veterans because I didn't go to Iraq and Afghanistan. I was already out. I was already on disability because I blew out my knee. And so it was, how do I give back to those who went? It's this way. And so that was my driving force. I mean, every day I got up, and that's what was on my mind. That how can I create a new program? How can I raise funds? How can I connect with somebody? How can I get this message out? And I was between 2012 and 2018, I was constantly on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, all the local news stations. I was doing interviews. We created a big veteran business center. It was the first one in North Texas, 7,000 square foot office space for veterans to come in and launch and build and grow businesses. And that was my driving force. That was my purpose. And then when it ended, brother, I crashed because I had done something that I didn't realize I had done. And that was I had tied my sense of purpose to my career. And I think that is part of what I talk about this on Tailgate Chat and the other stuff that I'm doing is that I've had jobs that I really liked, but they weren't my sense of purpose. And when I got laid off or that job ended, find another one, right? But when my purpose was tied to my job and every day, it crushed me. I think I said it in one of the podcasts I re-released this week, is it shook me to my core because I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning because I had no reason to, besides my two young sons, right? And get up and take them to school and just kind of mope around and just be like, what the hell? This sucks. And so that is a very important thing. And that's where I think this transitions just even beyond military or beyond veterans. You can be that guy or that gal who's worked at Oracle for 30 years and you wake up on Monday morning and you got an email saying, no, we're going to go with AI and we're laying 30,000 of you off, right? But they're like, I've worked here for so many years and I've put my entire heart and soul into this job. It can be crushing. And you have to understand that creates a momentum crash, that creates friction. And that's kind of where, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, some of the other stuff that I've developed was built and based on those scenarios happening.
Well, right quick. So you talk about purpose, right? So how does someone rebuild themselves, and how does someone, and what role does discipline play in rediscovering that purpose?
So for me, and this is what, for God's sake, brother, I am not a teacher. I'm not a coach. I don't pretend to be. I don't pretend to say I have the answers. What I do say is I have gone through some stuff. And the difference is that I'm sharing it, even live, right? I mean, like there's stuff that I'm still going through right now that I talk about on the podcast or I write about on Substack, because it's not that I have the answer for it, is I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to find out. So for example, I've got the advantage of having done this enough that I realize my sense of purpose is serving others. And I found that through right. And it wasn't like, okay, I served in the military, but that's not what I mean by service. I had the backs of the guys that I stood post with and the gals that I stood post with and the people that I was on ship with. I had their backs and I stood by them and I did what I served. My service was to my brother and sister more than it was to, we were wearing the uniform and we were there to protect freedom and, do all that. But really at the end of the day, it was really about being there for each other. I get out and then it was a big gap where I was just lost. It was like Ricky Bobby. I didn't really know what to do with my hands.
Yeah.
So then I got into the VFW, right? Like I talked about, and NTXMA and Honor Courage Commitment. And my whole thing was just about serving those veterans around me and those veterans, helping them go from homeless, which we did. We had one guy who was homeless and we helped him and we put him through some stuff. He actually had bipolar. He was bipolar and we helped him get everything straight. And he's got an IT career now, for Pete's sake. So that stuff's great. And that's what it's about. It's about helping others with tools and resources and serving them, even if it's just giving them motivation. It's just giving them, and I don't mean like rah-rah motivation. I mean like that internal, that internal desire to do something more, right? Kind of reignite that fire, restoke that fire in the engine there. And now what it means is that's my purpose. I don't have the answer for anybody to figure out how to find their purpose. One way that I found it, though, and one thing that I've done in research and reading other books, if you're a believer, right, I believe that God put each one of us here on purpose for a specific purpose. And it's up to each one of us to have that conversation with God to figure out what that purpose is. He'll put it out in front of you. And I'll tell you, I've had the idea to write a book about purpose and about what I'm doing now since 2017. And I don't know how to write a book. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to, but the idea was always there. It was always there. It was always there. I'm in this dark valley right after everything crashes. And then I find a part-time job that turns into a full-time job. And it's a gig and it paid and it had life insurance or health insurance. So I got comfortable. I wasn't growing. I wasn't progressing. I wasn't doing anything but just getting up, kids to school, go to work, dinner, go to bed. It was just a mundane. My wife's like, you need to do something. And it wasn't until I kind of started getting back into, and one thing led to another, and I became unemployed and applied to a job, another. I'll be honest with you, since the week before Thanksgiving in 2024, I've been unemployed. I have applied, I lost count, hundreds of jobs. I've received, and this is no BS, one phone interview.
Yeah, it's weird. I was when I was with corporate, now being self-employed, but when I was with corporate, it's like I applied. I was a safety guy at that time, and I was working on my security license
Right.
for investment licenses. I was working on those, and because I just wanted out. I was in a really toxic job environment. Not so much the company, it's just the leadership. And to your point, leadership is pretty much non-existent. That's why all of us vets, we gravitate towards each other and when we in these corporations or companies, because again, like-minded individuals. But
right.
So I was, same thing. And the funny thing is that now that I'm independent and obviously self-employed, now in that industry, dude, I get tons of jobs and offers. So what I do is, I throw them on LinkedIn because people know me on LinkedIn when I was that same guy. So I give them to other fellow veterans who are in transition. Say, hey, look, just kind of giving it back. But let me ask, because you brought up some really good points. So, that focus, that purpose, those gaps in between. So what led you to start, getting to that tailgate chat, so to speak, and what was the message that you were trying to build through it?
So great question. And here's what happened. After all those job applications and just constantly being rejected, right? Probably about 10 or 20% of those applications I'd send out, I'd get a thank you for your, application, Mr. Sosamon, but we're going to go another way. The other 90% I never heard anything from, ever. Yeah. And so after a while and after some reflection and doing some praying, what I realized is that, oh yeah, that whole idea about a book, maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing, because the other thing that I'm trying to do is not getting anywhere. It's almost like there's somebody somewhere telling me, stop doing what you think you need to do, because I've put something on your heart that you do need to be doing.
Yeah.
And that's what led to me finally and having this conversation with my wife. And she's like, well, maybe you should start writing the book, treat it like a sabbatical. And so I did. Sat down and wrote about, I think I have 36 pages to my manuscript right now. And that's about when I realized I don't know what the F I'm doing. And I'm writing in circles and yada, yada. But this is where it all led to, or where it came from. So decided I'm going to write the book. Okay, I'm going to write a book. Well, how do I promote a book? But let me take a step back. I'm going to write a book, but why am I writing a book? Because really, at the end of the day, I want to be on stages. I want to be talking about purpose. That's the one thing that I felt like I really missed when I was from working in the veteran community, was that I used to get on stages all the time. Big stages, small stages, keynote speaker, MC, lead ups, whatever. And I was talking about purpose, and I was talking about veterans, and I was talking about people in our community supporting veterans and being out there and helping them because of what they've done for us. Well, that's what I want to do. Okay, great. Now I'm going to write the book, because then that creates some authority, right, behind having a speaking career. Okay, great. Well, how do I promote a book? Because I can scribble some shit down and put it on LinkedIn or on Amazon and sell 5 copies. That doesn't create any authority. I need to be a bestseller. How do I do that? Well, I have to have a big following. Okay. Podcast. I should try that. And I'll be honest, man, I never listened to podcasts. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, why do people listen to other people? And, it was like I had this conversation with my son. My youngest son's 20 and other son's 24. And 10 years ago, so they'd be sitting there and they'd be watching, Twitch streams. I'll get it there in a second. Twitch streams, right? They're watching other people play video games. And I'm like, why on God's green earth are you watching somebody play a video game? There's an Xbox right there. Why don't you just play? And they both go, don't you watch the NFL every Sunday? Why don't you just go out in the backyard and play? And I go, what? Got it. It's entertainment. Okay.
Right.
Now, put a pin in that. So I go, okay, so podcasts. I get it. I used to listen to talk radio all the time. When I was in my car, I used to have an hour and a half drive to work and an hour drive home, whatever it was. And I'd listen to talk radio, listen to the political talk of the day, right? Just eating away at my mind about, the bad politicians on the left and the right and all this. So I was like, okay, I get it. So I have to figure it out. But one thing I find that I used to do a lot was I used to research way too much. And I would get stuck in this pattern of, well, do I need to buy this special camera? Do I need to buy this special microphone? And do I need to have a tripod? And how do I do it? Do I need special software? Going through all this stuff. And so I had a couple of conversations. My wife's like, just do it. And I'm like, okay, babe, I'll just do it. Right. Okay. And then another guy said it. And then I talked to a buddy that I know for a long time. And he's a financial advisor. He used to play in the NFL, and we were having this conversation. And he's like, dude, why don't you just do the podcast? And I'm like, well, I got to figure out how to do this and how do I edit? He goes, dude, you're just making excuses. That's all I'm hearing. Shut the F up, grab your camera and do it. It's going to suck, but that's okay. Just do it. And I was like, that night I'm scrolling through Instagram, and one of our pastors at church says the same exact thing, but he said it from a different perspective, and it dawned on me. And basically what he said was, I've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time, but I've always been trying to figure out, do I need this equipment? Do I need that equipment? How do I do this? And he goes, you know what? I finally just decided tonight. And he was sitting on his, he just grabbed his iPhone and he just filmed himself like this. And he's like, he's just sitting on his back patio. He goes, so this is my first effort at a podcast. It's just a little Instagram live. And I was like, holy shit, that's it. I just have to do it. And so the next day I did get a microphone and I did it. I sat on the tailgate of my truck, and it sucks. First episode was horrible, but that's all right. As I was editing it, I was like, oh, I can't. Nope, just leave it. Just leave it. And so, and that's where this, taking action and understanding where you're at and moving forward, right? That's the whole thing. So that's how, long story short, to get to your question, and I have a tendency to ramble. But the whole point of this is that understanding you have to move forward. And if you're trying to figure out your purpose, number one, you have to do some reflecting and have to look inward and understand what is it that's important to me, because I've kind of understood, Simon Sinek says, you understand your why, right? Your why is your purpose.
Right.
I also think that your what is your passion, and your what drives your why. Your passion drives your purpose. So if you can understand what you're passionate about, somewhere along that way, your purpose is going to derive as well. Whether it's your job, whether it's your family, whether it's your woodworking, whether it's my yard must be very green, whatever your passion is, your purpose is lying in there somewhere. And so that's you. Nobody can just tell you, oh, well, if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll find your purpose. It's not a treasure map. There's no roadmap to get there.
No, there isn't.
You have to slow down, and you have to understand where your values lie, and it kind of rolls in through that way.
No, and you're right, man. I mean, it's once you start finding that your path, so to speak, and God starts kind of shining that light and say, hey, maybe this is. And sometimes like, well, I don't like the light, or that seem, I know you're showing it to me, but I'm still gonna go this way, so to speak, And that's, again, those lessons come. Some of them are harsher than others, but at the end of the day,
it'll lead you right to a damn cul-de-sac. You just go in circles until you go back to you. Finally, you're like, all right, I'll turn left.
Because I know, and we can talk about a lot of things together, but we'll, definitely we're going to bring you back. But what's your final advice for someone who's stuck? And like you said, fear of uncertainty, or they just, well, I need this, I need that. What would be those parting words that you could tell them? Hey, here it is.
Yeah, I'll tell you. This is what I would say. And I have this triad of fear. I have this triad of fear, and it's the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, and the fear of success. You have to understand what you're afraid of. And so that leads back to this A.U.F thing that you kind of mentioned at the very beginning, and that is, action under friction. It's what it leads to is acknowledge, understand, and move forward. So you have to kind of acknowledge the truth about where you're at and what you're facing. You have to understand why it's there. Why are you meeting this friction? And in a lot of cases, it can be fear. It can be an identity attachment. It can be perfectionism, whatever it is. You have to understand that. And then you have to move forward through the friction. And that's where the hard part comes in and so my parting words are, if for anybody who's out there and they're feeling like I've been as recently as the last few months, is just feeling lost and just feeling stuck. Well, it's because I understood finally that even though it's not perfect, and even though it's not going to be my best, we don't grow if we're comfortable. We don't grow sitting still. I mean, it's great. I love to sit on my couch with a big old bag of Ruffles and a thing of Dean's French onion dip and watch Netflix. Of course, that's why I used to weigh 270 pounds. I don't anymore because I started moving, but that's comfortable. I got comfortable in my job when I was doing that, and I wasn't growing. But now, this is the first podcast I've been on. And as you can tell, I'm nervous because I won't shut the hell up, right? I'm just rambling on and on and on and on. You have to acknowledge it, understand it, and move forward. And you have to be able to move forward through the friction to grow. Because once you take that step into the unknown, now it becomes comfortable. Now you can go a little bit further. Now you can go a little bit further.
And let me ask you something. So if people want to, be able to seek you out and basically get that mentoring, get a different perspective, get a plan, a path, put together, where can people find you and reach out?
So a couple of different ways. I'm really easy to find because I am literally the only Cliff Sosamon on the face of the earth. If you Google me, you're going to find me, and you're going to find my grandfather, who was Mervyn Clifford Sosamon. You'll find his picture, and you'll probably find my great grandfather, whose middle name was Clifford and his last name was Sosamon. I'm the only one, Cliff Sosamon or Clifford Sosamon. You put that in there, you're going to find me, and it's going to come up. But that being said, tailgatechatpodcast.com. That is where I have a lot of stuff about the podcast. You can sign up for our newsletter. I send out a weekly newsletter that's a little bit of reflection, and then we've got a spark, and then a question to sit with for the week. It comes out every Monday morning, just to kind of get the motor going and get the juices flowing first thing in the morning. So you can find me on Substack, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. They're all Tailgate Chat related. You go to any one of those and type in Tailgate Chat, it's going to come up. It's really easy to find. It's a black circle with a sketched pickup truck. You can also find us on YouTube at symbol tailgate_chat. And we're on there as well. I'd love for people to find us on any of those platforms. Send me a message, send me a DM. My email's on the website as well. There's also the Execution Under Pressure speaker website, which we've recently launched. And on there's a form you can fill out if you want to get a hold of me as well.
That's amazing, brother. Brad, first of all, thanks so much for your service. You're another fellow jarhead. It's always hoorah, get some. It's always great to meet somebody. Definitely going to have you back because there's a lot more things that we can talk about and kind of really start putting our teeth into a lot of things as it pertains to leadership and purpose. So thanks, brother. Thanks so much for your service. And
pleasure, brother. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Amazing show. By the way, in addition to all the other places where Cliff's mentioned where you can find them, it's also in the show description as well. You can find all his links right there. And because it's true, we do end up gravitating towards one another and finding purpose. So why not build the community and find another battle buddy so that you don't have to go. You listen to me. A lot of us, we get out of the service and we just kind of go into that cave and we just lose that community. But it really doesn't have to be that way. We preach all this stuff when we're in the service about battle buddy and the buddy program and all this other stuff. But we are our own worst offenders when it comes to following through with what we're saying. So reach out to Cliff. There's other avenues. You can reach out to me. And by the way, look, listen, because this ties in really well. If you've been ruminating, getting into that dark place where you feel yourself you're digging into a hole and you're not coming out, look, tough times, won't last. Only tough people do. So there's no need for you to take your own life or do something that's stupid, because at the end of the day, we are the ones who left behind asking all the questions. So, but amazing show, amazing guests, everybody. So I think this is a great place to index right now. So with that being said, everybody, I just want to say, Ice Tomas, Daisuke. I'll see you next week. And by the way, don't forget to call mom, send her a card, give her a big kiss, or your wife. Tell mama happy Mother's Day. And everybody, I'll see you next week. All right, get some.